Hello, everyone. You are listening to Scenecraft. From opening shots to long takes and epilogues, we examine our favorite scenes from cinema here on the podcast. I'm Cody, here with my co-hosts,
Mark
and Connor.
You can find Scenecraft on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Scenecraft Podcast for the latest news on the show. Today we have another legacy film that we'll be discussing, and that is The Truman Show, directed in 1998 by Peter Weir. We're recording just shy of its 25th anniversary, and we are really looking forward to revisiting this amazing film. But as usual, let's kick off with our brief What We've Been Watching segment, Quick Takes.
Speak quickly.
Quickly, thank you.
Quickly, come on. Hurry up, quicker.
Way quicker.
Okay, I'll say it fast.
So what have you guys been watching?
Okay, so we've had a little bit of time since our last episode, so I went out to the theaters to watch Blackberry, which was directed by Matt Johnson in 2023. The logline reads, "The story of the meteoric rise and the catastrophic demise of the world's first smartphone." All right, so I liked this one. Here are a couple things I enjoyed about Blackberry. First, it answers the central question about the rise and fall of a company without feeling like a lifeless regurgitation of a Wikipedia article. And much like the second film I'm going to be talking about, Blackberry isn't afraid to explore the nitty-gritty details and specifics of the technology at hand. It may alienate some audiences, but I actually really enjoyed that part of it. There were a couple things I wasn't a huge fan of. So the movie employs this handheld style camera work similar to The Office or Succession. And while the aim of this technique is to deeper immerse the audience into the story, I found it kind of distracting, and it actually took me a little bit out of things. And my last nitpick of this is actually the wig work. And it's probably because I'm familiar enough with Jay Baruchel and Glenn Howerton that I found their hairstyles to be completely lacking in believability. But that being said, I still think that Blackberry warrants a recommendation, especially if you enjoyed Air and some of these other recent depictions of inner workings of major companies. So I would recommend it. The second movie I watched was Contact, which was directed by one of my favorites, Robert Zemeckis, in 1997. So just a year away from The Truman Show. And the logline reads, "After years of searching, Dr. Ellie Arroway finds conclusive radio proof of extraterrestrial intelligence sending plans for a mysterious machine." So I have to start out by giving a shout out to friend of the show, Kelly Latulay, for recommending Contact. She's told me it's one of her favorite movies, and so I went ahead and watched it because I actually hadn't seen it when it was released or thereafter. And the cast for this movie is stacked. It's got the impeccable Jodie Foster, William Fichtner, which is a favorite of ours, and Matthew McConaughey. The first thing that stuck with me about this movie is how cerebral it was. Similar to Blackberry, this movie doesn't shy away from the nerdy details of the science that's depicted on screen. It was also nice to see a well-rounded female protagonist who knew her craft well and stood up for herself. A quick aside, but one hilarious detail that I initially admired about this film was the supposed choice of William Fichtner's character to avoid making eye contact with other characters. And I really enjoyed this at first because it rang so true to me with previous experiences interacting with some more intense science colleagues. Now, what I'm going to reveal isn't really necessarily a spoiler. I think it's made pretty clear early on in the film. I might have just missed it, but his character is simply blind, and that explains the lack of eye contact. And when I discovered this, I was simultaneously embarrassed and crushed because I thought it was like this inspired character choice, but for a different reason, obviously.
It's great that they did not make that character decision obvious in a way.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
just it's part of the character. It doesn't impair his ability.
No.
That's great. Yeah.
In some ways it enhances it because he's analyzing all these audio waves and everything. It was great. My only major critique of the film was the lack of chemistry between Foster and McConaughey. I just felt like the romance was kind of forced, and I don't really feel like it fit well with the movie altogether. But besides that, I think it's definitely worth recommending Contact, especially if you like movies like Arrival and Interstellar.
Nice. Yeah, I have to give a +1 to that recommendation. Contact's definitely one of my favorite sci-fi movies, and I've yet to actually read the novel,
Oh, okay.
which I have a bunch of friends that are huge fans of the novel, and they like the adaptation, but the novel is its own experience. And yeah, absolutely would recommend this too.
How about you, Connor? What have you been watching?
So I've got two interesting ones this week. The first one here is Coyote Ugly by David McNally from the year 2000. And the logline reads, after getting a job at a women-run NYC bar that teases its male patrons, aspiring songwriter Violet Sanford comes out of her shell. I just want to set the scene for my picks this week. My wife and I recently took a little getaway, a little vacay, to Lexington and Bardstown, Kentucky to do part of the Bourbon Trail. Highly recommended, by the way. And one thing about me, I like to watch trash on vacation. Comfort food. Something I don't have to think too hard about. I'm not working. I don't want to work on vacation. And that extends into my movie and show watching. So, folks, I had the pleasure of finally viewing this treasure 23 years after its original release. And let me tell you, for anyone that grew up in the 90s and early 2000s like we did, this movie is incredible. It's like an AI-created fever dream of inputs from the time period. And I'll give you guys a quick rundown. Fly by Sugar Ray plays in the first minute of the film.
Yes.
Out of My Head, Fastball.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Cowboy, Kid Rock. Leanne Rimes makes an appearance. Tyra Banks is a character, and John Goodman, fresh off of The Big Lebowski, plays the dad character. The list goes on. So you know it's going to be good. I saw someone write this on Letterboxd after I had used the exact same metaphor to describe it to you guys, but it's also one of my favorite reviews I think I've ever read on the app, by the way. But they said watching Coyote Ugly feels like a sleepover you had in 4th or 5th grade.
Oh,
And I think that's really the
so
best
true.
way to describe it. This movie pretty clearly thinks it's a female empowerment story, and I think it does achieve that in some ways, but it has a pre-September 11th purity and naivete to it that just captures what that time period felt like, at least for me. So if you've got a soft spot for that kind of thing, I would put any expectations of a good movie to the side and just highly recommend checking out Coyote Ugly.
Wow.
Oh, I'm so glad you saw it. I remember distinctly watching this with my sister on VHS.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Definitely going to have to watch this now after that glowing review.
The second thing I watched is Platonic, written and directed by Nicholas Stoller from 2023. And it's about a former childhood set of best friends that reconnect as adults and try to get past the rift that led to their falling out. So this is a new Apple TV show that just dropped from Nick Stoller, who directed Forgetting Sarah Marshall, starring Rose Byrne and Seth Rogen, who also worked together on Neighbors and Neighbors 2, Sorority Rising, which I haven't seen either of, by the way.
Oh,
So the first episode of this came out while we were on our trip, and I had to check it out because I think I might speak for all of us when I say Forgetting Sarah Marshall is an all-time favorite comedy.
Yes.
So I wanted to
Definitely.
definitely look at it. And so far, yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch. I think 3 episodes are out at the time of this show, and it's a really quick watch. Every episode is around a half hour, and they just fly by. And it deals with the pretty realistic concept that as you get older and you get married, you start families, etc., you basically just don't have friends of the opposite sex. It's just sort of a thing that's known among adults. And this show uses the platonic friendship between Byrne and Rogen to question that and wonder why those friendships can't be maintained or even rekindled after some time has passed. So I would definitely recommend checking out Platonic on Apple TV. It's a lot of fun. Have either of you guys seen it?
No, but this sounds like the perfect new show to kind of pick up, watching with the partner. And
Yeah.
we'll definitely be checking it out.
I was sold after you mentioned Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
It's definitely got that feel to it.
Oh, yes.
You still got it. What about you, Cody? What have you been watching?
So this week I went out to the theater to check out You Hurt My Feelings, directed and written by Nicole Holofcener. And I actually went out to the Tiburon Cine Lounge, which is a relatively new theater experience in the Bay Area. And it was very cool. And I think it added to the experience of the film, which is kind of this, like the name implies, loungy setting, where it's just kind of a bunch of people on various armchairs and couches all on the same level, and actually created a somewhat, intimate, fun experience where you're all enjoying it and laughing together. It was just kind of that perfect storm where all the elements come together and you have a great time as a result of the environment you're in.
Great.
Yeah. And Connor, I know you saw You Hurt My Feelings too, and saw it a bit earlier than me. And I'm curious to get your reactions. But for those of you who don't know about the film, the logline reads, "A novelist's long-standing marriage is suddenly upended when she overhears her husband give his honest reaction to her latest book." So in terms of plot, the film is pretty straightforward, actually, which really allows it to center on the realism of its performances and all of those small nuances that come with accurately portraying an on-screen marriage like it is in reality. And anyone in a marriage or really any partnership or friendship, they constantly navigate this sliding scale between honesty and unconditional support for that person. And this movie really explores that well through a comedic lens, which is only made stronger, as everything is, by Julie Louis-Dreyfus as one of the leads. This movie plucks its comedy and its authenticity from really specific, relatable moments that we all go through, which had me actually laughing out loud in the theater, hence that setting where everyone's kind of laughing together. And that's an experience I really value. So I actually haven't seen Nicole Hofcener's other feature projects yet, but she has directed episodes of some of my favorite shows like Parks and Rec, Kimmy Schmidt, Orange is the New Black, and interestingly, she wrote part of The Last Duel with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, which I realized in the moment, but I didn't put two and two together till researching her a bit. Anyway, Holofcener is a clearly talented filmmaker, and I'd highly recommend You Hurt My Feelings. I'm looking forward to checking out some of her other projects as well. And Connor, as mentioned, you've seen this film. You've seen some of Holofcener's other films. What was your experience like watching this?
Yeah, it was really similar. I loved this. My wife and I had a great time. And like you said, our whole theater was just having a steady stream of laughs the entire time. Like I was laughing out loud with the people next to me. Really, really fun. And I had only seen Enough Said, which is a 2013 movie that she made. And you should definitely check that one out because it has a lot of similarities, equally funny. She does a great job at kind of getting at these small human truths, especially like as you get older into your marriage or as you get just slightly older adults. You don't really see humor like that done well often.
And then next up, a bit of a throwback. I had a chance to check out 8 Mile by Curtis Hanson, which is the 2002 film. If you haven't seen it, the log line reads, "On the de facto cultural boundary of 8 Mile Road, Detroit, an aspiring rapper attempts to launch a career in hip-hop while struggling to make ends meet." So almost everyone knows, I think, that this is a semi-autobiographical film about Eminem. And Connor, for me, this is almost like your Lebowski story, where all of your friends in school and basically everyone saw this back in 2002. But for some reason, I just never did. And everybody constantly talking about it made me dig my heels in deeper. My wife and I were scrolling through Peacock and saw it listed, and she was shocked that I had never seen it. So she just hit play immediately. I was like, I guess this is happening. And I completely see the appeal of 8 Mile now. And it's really clear why this was so successful. A few weeks ago with Air, I mentioned how accessible and inspirational an underdog story can be. And that's definitely the case here with 8 Mile. But the paradox is that an underdog story can also sometimes come off as conventional. And this movie definitely took fewer risks than I thought it would. I imagined it as this really gritty, somewhat dramatic film with like a hit soundtrack.
Mm.
To some degree it was, but fewer risks. There were also a few creative decisions that now feel very early 2000s cringe.
Nice.
I think that's the best way to describe it.
Oh
That's
no.
my sweet spot.
Yeah. Coyote Ugly. You know what? That is totally part of the charm.
Mhm.
And if you somehow have not seen 8 Mile like me, I would recommend checking out this cultural phenomenon.
I've actually never seen this either. I need to see it.
Oh.
And gentlemen, I have a bit of a surprise take for you.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
I'm not going to get too deep into it, but especially for you, Mark,
Oh.
I watched A Man Called Otto.
Oh my God. I was not expecting that at all. What?
Oh boy. Oh, how I have so many questions. How and why and what did you think?
This was another pick by the missus because I didn't know this, but this is an adaptation of a s- a Swedish language version of the film, and I think
Yeah.
a book or a novel.
hmm
And she really wanted to watch it. I'll watch pretty much anything. I just decided to go for it and join. And you know what? I liked it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, there
Yeah.
it is.
What's not to like? It was Mark as the resident Hank's head. He brought a lot
That's
to
me.
the role, honestly.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
Yeah. He played against type in some ways.
yeah, he definitely played against type, which is interesting. And I enjoyed myself and really just wanted to kind of come clean and credit where credit's due, Mark. I liked it.
Well, I'm glad you liked it and I'm glad you watched it. I did too, for what it's worth. I saw it in theaters, so
I wouldn't do that, but
I thought you didn't recommend it, Mark.
I didn't.
Okay, there it is. Just keeping
No,
it
I
above
didn't
board
I
here.
didn't recommend it to like the general audiences because
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I still liked it, if that makes sense. It just kind
Yeah.
of occupies this weird in between state where it wasn't,
Sure.
yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it either. Yeah,
but I'm
it's like
still glad I saw it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
it's
No,
perfectly
I get that.
serviceable.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your picks for the week. And now let's move into our discussion about Peter Weir's The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey, Laura Linney, and Ed Harris, among many others. And as with all of our scene selections, beware of spoilers ahead.
I predict that in just a moment, we will see a lady on a red bike, followed by a man with flowers, and a Volkswagen Beetle with a dented fender.
Truman, please.
Look. Lady. Flowers. And...
Truman, this is silly.
There it is! There it is! There's the dented beetle! Yes!
The logline reads, insurance salesman Truman Burbank discovers that his entire life is a reality TV show. So that concept alone, from writer Andrew Niccol, is something I think we could all talk about for hours.
Yeah.
And that is the core of the creative and financial success of The Truman Show. It was also nominated for 3 Oscars. It won 3 BAFTA awards and 3 Golden Globes. It is thought-provoking. It's even prophetic at times, while all still balancing satire and comedy with these unforgettable performances, direction, and design, using a blend of different genres and tones. So, what did you guys take away from your rewatch, which I'm assuming is one of many?
Yeah, so I've always held The Truman Show in really high regard, and I was determined to actively reflect on why that is during this most recent rewatch. And what I've come to realize is that this film is the epitome of being ahead of its time when I think of that term. And so, in a weird way, I feel like The Truman Show occupies this space where there's this universal appeal to the audience, and that I feel like most people, unless I can only speak for myself, have contemplated this idea of the world truly revolving around them, like a giant movie or theater production.
Mm-hmm.
And I originally saw this movie in 1998 with my dad. And even with the majority of the subtleties of the film being completely lost on me, this concept did stick with me. And so little did I know this film was going to take on a whole new meaning with this impending wave of reality television that was just about to strike at the beginning of the millennium. In this context, The Truman Show predicted the public's future obsession of riding this line between our personal and public lives for entertainment. We see this now all over, right? So, reality
Hmm.
TV shows and even social media. I just love this movie. I think it's flawless or nearly flawless. I can't
Yeah.
really find too many faults with it. And one thing I really enjoy about it is the small pieces of the audience reaction
Oh
to the
yeah.
broadcast. It makes the world feel so real while never taking away focus from Truman. And I think it's these smart decisions such as that really kind of showcase that it's this great balance of comedy and drama while also tapping into deep philosophical and existential questions. So I think it's a must watch for everybody.
Yeah, well said. No, I love this movie so much too. I think it's a completely perfect film. And I can thank The Truman Show for my lifelong irrational fear of secretly being watched as part of a giant experiment. So
Exactly.
I'm right there with you, Mark. Um, I'm mostly joking, but I'm not sure if you guys saw in your research. There is actually a classification of delusion now called Truman Syndrome, where
Right.
people believe their lives were reality television series. I shouldn't laugh at that, but like it's coined a whole new
Mhm,
kind of classification.
Wow.
mhm,
But outside of predating and eerily predicting the rise of our collective obsession with reality TV, like you said, Mark, the central tension hit me especially hard because I found it so relatable. And it's that expectation to be perfect and the desire to break free of it all. So I
mhm.
give so much credit to Peter Weir for sticking to his vision and pulling off a crossover hit so well. I don't think this film would have worked as well as it did at any other time and with any other main actor.
Yeah.
I grew up a big Jim Carrey fan. I mean, Ace Ventura, Liar Liar, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask,
Mhm.
right? I think this is his best role, if I'm being honest, and a really inspired casting decision because it has his earlier roles to push against.
Mhm.
There's so many moments where he gets to channel that slapstick energy that we all love, but as an audience surrogate, just reacting to this ridiculous facade of normalcy projected around him. And as a sci-fi, I think it's truly haunting too. It's my favorite kind of like Twilight Zone style sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
It's almost odd to think like in our current day and age where the idea of main character energy has become common to the point of being memeified that maybe the real fear is not being important enough to have life revolve around you.
Mm.
Hmm.
Completely agree. And Connor, to your point, yes, I think The Truman Show is nearly a perfect film. And one of the main reasons I think it still resonates with everybody, as you were mentioning, Connor, is that we all have felt stuck at some point,
Hmm.
whether it's in a job, in a location. It's such a human thing to want to just escape for the sake of escaping, even if our lives are going well. It's sort of in our nature to want more and explore and be curious and break away from our own patterns, even if we are habitual beings in the end.
Hmm.
During every single scene in The Truman Show, you can pull dozens and dozens of existential concepts and ethical questions like nature versus nurture, playing God, overcoming fear, scrutiny of the American dream. The list goes on and
Mhm.
on. And the
Mhm.
movie works so well on that thematic and granular level, analyzing every detail in every scene, but works equally just as a broad, witty comedy, too. Its pacing is perfect. I've seen this so many times and pluck out a new detail on every watch. And honestly, I
Mhm.
wish I could just see this again for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so nice to be talking about this with you guys on its 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
Can't wait to dig in here.
Okay, well, let's dive into our scene selection for the film, which we're going to call Road Out of Seahaven. Connor, do you want to set the scene for us?
I'll take a stab at it. So, this scene is just about halfway into the film, roughly at the 46-minute mark, and it lasts about 7 minutes. So we're witnessing an existential crisis for Truman, who has come to realize that there is something very strange happening in his fictional town of Seahaven. He just can't seem to escape, no matter how hard he tries. After revealing the looping mechanics of the town to his wife, Meryl, he decides to take her on a spontaneous road trip to Atlantic City, but is blocked by increasingly treacherous obstacles.
All right, so the scene begins with Meryl, played by Laura Linney, arriving home on her bicycle, and she's dressed in this traditional nursing uniform. After this, we get an overhead shot as she approaches Truman's car, and we see through the moonroof that he's sitting perfectly still.
So I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but did you notice that the neighbor is holding up his trash can, which, if you look back, it clearly has a hidden camera right on the front of it to get
Oh.
a specific shot of
No
Truman
way.
sitting in the
No.
car. So he's
Okay.
like holding it right next to his head in a really weird way.
That explains a lot. Yeah.
I think this is a great time to mention that this movie and this scene in particular contains a bunch of hidden camera
Yes.
angles,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they kind of play into the different ways that they're able to capture some of the action that's happening in this fictional setting.
Yeah, it's becoming very apparent how everything is covered with cameras in the entire world.
As we get into the scene, I definitely want to dig into that concept more and the way the filmmakers play between those hidden cameras and just a standard shot
Mhm.
we as the audience are seeing, and that seamless transition between the two. And
Mhm.
it's done very well, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
So one of the things I really focused on this first scene is the choice to put Meryl in this traditional nursing outfit, and I really wanted
Mm.
to get to the bottom of why they did this. And what I've kind of come to is that I think it enhances this sense of nostalgia, but it also adds to the meticulously crafted perfection within Truman's world. So to Truman, the uniform, like the rest of the clothing in the town, appears idyllic and clean. But to the audience who's aware of the fact that this is taking place in modern day, we see this nursing outfit as just another layer of artificiality.
Yeah,
Right,
that's a
right.
great point.
Yeah. As well as like a lot of other costuming
Mhm.
in the movie is kind of this like 50s, 60s, and yet 90s blend.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, yeah.
Just and going back to Meryl, it's really fun to read the concerned look on her face before she's even approached Truman, knowing that she's definitely been fully briefed on the situation. Like she knows what she's about to walk into,
Uh-huh.
and was basically warned that Truman is in full conspiracy theory mode and that she's going to have to talk him down.
Yeah. And next up we get a shot that is naturally framed by the window of the passenger side of the car, where we see Truman's concerned neighbor and an inquisitive Meryl asking Truman if everything is all right. She opens the passenger door of the car as Truman asks her to get in.
So several of these shots, as we kind of mentioned before, and a lot of the shots in the film are treated with both dark and light vignettes that surround the frame to give the appearance that the camera is strategically hidden inside of an object.
Yeah.
Totally. Sometimes in the scenes, sometimes other scenes throughout the film, the filmmakers they abandon that vignette effect as to not be distracting in the whole film. And like we were talking about before, going seamlessly into hidden camera versus, standard camera, we're watching a film, as well as the strategically placed zooms that a lot of the time lead
I
to
love
these
those.
the comedic moments. And in this case, Mark, I think you pointed out that the lighter vignette could indicate that the camera could be in Meryl's nurse's cap or her uniform, maybe a button cam, which they mention later
yeah.
in the film.
Button cam.
Although the eye line is like shifted to the side a little bit, so I think they do play with camera positioning a little bit, and you just have to suspend your disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are shown the couple from behind, from the back seat of the car, as we see Truman staring into the rearview mirror before adjusting it and telling Meryl to look.
So here we get to see that, all that Truman knows of the world is what he's been told, and maybe some manufactured movies and television that he's watched. And it's really, really funny to see him doing a classic stakeout where he's parked in reverse and observing through the rearview mirror, sort of like an old-timey detective. And little does he know that everyone is aware that he's watching as they are watching him.
We cut back to a few of the previously established shots as Truman predicts that she will see a lady on a red bike, followed by a man with flowers, and a Volkswagen Beetle with a dented fender. And at this point, Meryl looks mildly worried and she attempts to dispel his observations and leave the car before Truman grabs her arm unexpectedly, forcing her to stay. And it's at this point we get a flash of Jim Carrey's famous crazy-eyed stare that he's used in so many different movies.
Yeah,
This is where we see like traditional Carrey kind of peek through a little bit.
definitely. And we were talking about this, off the air. He's really the only person that can pull off this crazed look.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the Carrey classic look. And if I'm Meryl right now, I'm actually deeply concerned for my own safety. As the way he like grabs her, it's almost like, who is
Scary.
this guy? He's
It's
he's
violent.
lost his. It's violent and kind of freaky.
Yeah.
And again, I know we're all sure that she has been briefed on the situation, and she's been sent there to calm him down and keep him at home, don't let him leave. But it looks like he could actually snap at any second.
Yeah, there's a lot of nervousness here from Meryl, and I mean, really great acting from Laura Linney throughout this whole scene. I mean, Carrie too, but she clearly wants to leave as fast as possible because I think she has a feeling about what's going to happen if she stays.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. There's different levels of nervousness that she hits throughout the entirety of this scene where she grows more and more concerned.
And so we go back to the shot in the rearview mirror where Truman is emphatically narrating as two of his three predictions come true, only to be momentarily faked out by the absence of the VW Beetle that's supposed to drive by.
Yeah, so we get that classic Carrey performance where he says like red bike, flowers,
Yeah.
and then pauses. And he goes, and Meryl says it with him in this really funny, condescending way.
Yeah.
And it's just yet another reminder that everybody in Truman's life has basically been gaslighting him since he was a child, just treating him like a child, being super condescending, and you're crazy.
Yeah.
So.
She's so ready to like cut it off as fast as she can. Also, I have to say, why does Christoph and the crew let this happen? I mean, we know everyone on Seahaven Island is taking stage direction over earpiece audio. We've seen that happen in a couple scenes. It just seems like something they could have so easily avoided. Like they could have told these actors to mix it up. And then they really would have made Truman feel like he was going crazy.
Yeah, I constantly am wondering that throughout the film, like what is manufactured to make him realize the nature of his reality and kind of drive him off the deep end to make for entertainment versus like actually letting him leave and fully realize what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great point. You wonder if they kind of want him to figure it out because they know it's going to unravel anyway.
I think you have to assume that, just that they would keep this up and let him discover it.
Mm-hmm. And then right after that shot, immediately after Meryl dismisses Truman, stating that this is silly, the VW appears finally, and Truman loudly rejoices. He then turns to Meryl and explains that everything and everyone around him is on loop. Meryl attempts to change the subject to a barbecue that she's planning, but Truman responds by saying he won't be there for it. Instead of acknowledging Truman, Meryl then decides to continue on about a few of the things and items she needs to buy for the event, trying to just talk over him. And Truman just stops her right there with the line, "Are you listening to a word I'm saying?"
Yeah. And so this is peak 90s Jim Carrey. We see, once again, just glimpses of this in the movie. As I think this was his first dramatic role. Connor, you mentioned this in your overall take that he had, these tentpole comedic classics that he was known for prior to this. But I remember being genuinely chilled by Laura Linney's detached performance as Meryl. And this is a perfect example of her ability to talk at Truman rather than carrying on a true conversation. And for whatever reason, that really stuck with me.
Yeah. And going back to peak 90s Jim Carrey, as soon as the dented VW appears and he's celebrating, he does this operatic yell like "oh,"
Yeah,
and it's kind of that Carrie classic thing that he just brings to these characters. And I also had a bit of a mid-scene question for you guys. So obviously Truman does not yet know the full extent of the lie he's been living for his whole life, but he has an inkling, right? And he suspects that Meryl is somehow a part of it, and he's kind of lashing out at her in the car because of that. Do you think that the character is written in a realistic way where everything that's led to this point of the film, he's starting to pick up on some of these details and intricacies that would make him act out and behave in this way that's different from what we've seen him act like throughout the film?
I think he knows something weird is happening. And I can imagine up until this point, they've run a pretty tight ship. 30 years or whatever it's been that he hasn't figured it out. But he catches on to some things that are like some big slip ups on the production side. And I think that is enough to really make him question what's going on around him. I was along for the ride. Personally. I felt like he was reacting like realistically to some extent.
I think part of it too is his age and maturity. You know, I think in your 20s, you may let a couple more things kind of slide, but I think it's also that there's so many slip ups in a row that actually makes him suspicious and start to actively kind of take mental notes of all these things.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like he maybe wasn't looking for it before.
So at this point, Meryl responds by stating that Truman's behavior is a result of his fixation on traveling to Fiji. So she kind of pins everything on that. And she attempts to console him by encouraging him to save up money for a few months and finally go on this trip. So after presumably fixing the situation, she attempts to leave the car again. And at this point, we get a quick cut to a close-up of the car controls and the door locking to prevent her from leaving the car.
Yeah. I love how in this moment of the scene, something that has worked for Meryl for years and years to manipulate Truman, basically putting off plans into the future. Anytime he wants to do anything or go anywhere, it's how about in a few months? How about next year? I thought we were having kids. It's just a stall tactic. That has finally failed here.
Yeah.
And this is kind of almost like the denouement of Truman's emotional journey. Like this was the final straw for him where he breaks.
And it almost works. I mean, you can see the look on his face. He's like mulling it over. And what she's saying is, it makes a lot of sense. It's very practical. But I think he recognizes that it's a deflection tactic.
Yeah.
So Truman explains that he doesn't want to wait to travel to Fiji and wants to go now. Meryl nervously laughs, and he kind of riffs these terms. Early bird gathers no moss. Rolling stone catches the worm, right? And she's terrified. I mean, you can see how scared for her life she is after he's saying this.
Exactly. And it's at this moment that the panic starts to set into Meryl's face, and Laura Linney displays this perfectly.
Yeah. And just from the music perspective, this is kind of where the music cue of the scene hits. And most notably, these big bongo drum hits kind of driving the momentum of the scene. It's almost like this, oh shit, he has finally snapped moment indicated by the music. And also interesting how throughout the film, Truman deploys all of these, as you mentioned, Connor, all these common idioms and is purposefully mixing them up here to show his existential crisis. So the term is early bird catches the worm and a rolling stone gathers no moss. And he's kind of flipped words in there to be sort of playful, rather than the image of perfection, like earlier in the film where he's saying the whole kit and caboodle and the whole ball of wax, which he's used to using these kind of generic stock terms that he's learned in his very controlled life. Here he's using them in a much more chaotic way and is sort of rebelling against his former life now that he's out of control and realizing what's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. So after this, we get this shot from the back of the car and bumper with the license plate reading Seahaven Island, a nice place to live, which is just so painfully generic.
Yeah, this is such a cool shot. And really what they've done is mounted a camera probably to the car hitch to replicate the effect of a snorri cam, which in our group, I know we've talked about this before, but it's essentially a specialty rig made in the mid 90s to mount to an actor so that the shot, the frame we're seeing as the audience is actually moving just as the actor is moving and kind of creates this disorienting effect. This isn't exactly a snorri cam shot, but very similar impact, and it's standing in for one of the thousands of cameras on the island. And also, I was reading online, a lot of people think that the license plate of the car, which, it's a film, license plates always have to mean something, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The license plate says 816 KAZ. And a lot of people think this is actually a biblical reference to Romans 8:16, which goes, "The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God." So the connection to the God motif throughout the film there is clear, but I think it may be a little bit of a stretch. I don't know if it's just like a random series of numbers that they picked.
I don't know. I could see it. I mean, someone had to choose that, and
Right.
I'm
There's
sure it's
no
not
accidents.
random. What I'm confused about is Seahaven Island is supposed to be a state, like Rhode Island. Like, why does it have its own license plate?
That's a really good
Oh,
point.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, further to the point that this is within this dome, this mega dome, it's sort of this weird sci-fi alt America where
Yeah.
it's a combination of the idyllic vision of the country in this community, which they had to make seem large enough where, yeah, feasibly it could be like a Rhode Island
Right.
where Truman would never want to leave,
And for what it's worth, if Truman's never been out of the town, city, dome, whatever you want to call it, then he wouldn't really know that it's only limited to states
Yeah, that's
for the
true.
license plates.
Yeah, it's interesting when he describes where Fiji is to his best friend Marlin, and you have to wonder if the way that Truman understands geography is accurate to life, or if they've taught him a certain way
Oh, that's true.
in the
Yeah.
reality of the town to further manipulate him. So it's sort of like, how would he ever have acquired the information that Fiji is where it is? Like, why would they not have prevented that? I don't know.
So now we get a medium shot of the car racing down the brick road, just erratically swerving around before reaching a roundabout. We cut to a shot from the back seat of the car where Meryl turns and nervously smiles into the camera before cutting to a hidden camera in the side mirror as Truman wildly exclaims that he is being spontaneous. We cut to an overhead shot of the car maniacally driving in circles around the roundabout. And I love how Meryl buckles up in this scene because
That's
she
a great
knows
pickup.
she's in trouble.
Yeah, this is a great moment because by having Meryl stare into the camera, not only is she breaking the fourth wall, but she's also signaling to the producers of the show that she's starting to worry about her own safety.
Yeah, and I love Truman's line, "Somebody help me, I'm being spontaneous." He's just truly broken at this point.
Yeah.
He's not acting like himself, he's lashing out, and he's almost calling out into the universe to try and stop him because he obviously doesn't know this is a show, doesn't know there are cameras everywhere, so it's almost like whatever's preventing me from doing what I want, try and stop me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the car continues to circle around the roundabout over and over, and we return to the side mirror where Truman changes his mind about Fiji and instead declares he wants to go to Atlantic City. And Meryl argues that Truman hates to gamble and asks, "Oh, why would you want to go there?" Which is another funny detail.
Yeah.
To which Truman responds, "Because I never have. That's why people like to go places, isn't it?"
Yeah, and I don't think the choice to depict a roundabout is by accident. So driving in circles kind of represents the cyclical nature of Truman's life in this movie. And when we transition out of this shot, he actually breaks out of that roundabout. So he's kind of declaring that he's going to go travel somewhere where he's never been before.
I also feel like the footage of the car going around the roundabout was sped up for effect.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm glad you noticed that too. Okay. So the car exits the roundabout in perfect synchronization. A line of cars exit their driveways, causing an instant traffic jam, which is, I think, one of the better comedic moments of this
Yeah.
because it's just such an unnatural thing to see.
Mhm.
Um, but they block Truman's attempt to leave the neighborhood. And so we cut to the shot from the back seat of the car, and Truman suspiciously asks Meryl if she's to blame for this traffic. She implores Truman to go home, and he agrees, and he flips the car into reverse. He then apologizes, but he speeds up the car even more at this point.
The way he says, "Should I?" is so brilliant and chilling.
Yeah, when she asks,
him,
like,
yeah.
you're going to blame me for the traffic?
It's like, I don't know.
Oh.
Should I?
Yeah, that's so good. And we get another great look from Laura Linney as she stares into the camera with this satisfied face that reads like, "Look how good I did."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, definitely. Linny does such a phenomenal job with the emotional roller coaster she's on throughout the scene. One second she is smug and satisfied with her role as an actor, and the next she's absolutely terrified for her own life as a person, not the actor,
Mhm.
but a
Mhm.
human being.
Yeah, and Truman goes back into the roundabout again, this time stating that he wants to go to New Orleans for Mardi Gras instead, as he drives around in circles and honks the horn before turning off into the same street as before. He announces, "Look, Meryl, same road, no cars. It's magic." Meryl's tone changes as she orders Truman to let her out of the car, but he refuses and says, "I think I'd like a little company." And we're getting a little Lloyd Christmas Jim Carrey here, a little bit. We also know Truman's a responsible guy. He's not really a partier, as we see in that one flashback where he's studying for finals in the library and turning away Meryl and Marlon, trying to get him to drink beers instead. So it feels like he's doing a very over-the-top version of what he thinks partying at Mardi Gras looks like.
Yeah. And then a quick hard cut to a static shot of Truman's car at the start of a long bridge over water. And once again, there's black vignetting in the frame. This reminds us that this is yet another hidden camera, maybe placed on a light post or a tree.
Yeah, and the music and momentum really drops at the start of the shot. So it kind of emphasizes, hey, the fun and games are now over, and Truman is now faced with his debilitating fear of the water that surrounds the island.
Mm-hmm. The next shot, which is really great in my opinion, we get this view of the rear view mirror where we see Truman's watery and uncertain eyes as Meryl comments that he knows he can't drive over water, which is a callback to Truman's phobia of water as a result of his dad's quote unquote tragic death at sea.
Yeah, watching this again just made me realize how twisted Kristoff is for constructing this fear of water by faking his father's own death as his responsibility.
Yeah.
His mother at one point also says, "But I've never blamed you, Truman," which kind of suggests that other people have, and he's clearly been carrying around this heavy guilt with him his entire life. It's very messed up.
It is so disturbing. And yeah, that sort of dark comedy tone, I think that's what really makes this all work.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, we get Laura Linney's masterful, condescending performance in what is her last-ditch effort to talk him out of this little road trip they're on. And the visual of holding on just Truman's eyes in the mirror, it's so effective. And while we hear his slow, panicked breaths, Meryl is almost taunting him. And like a master manipulator, Meryl has these buzzwords that she's clearly used for years, however long she's known Truman. Like, let's go back home where you feel safe. Like emphasizing the word safe and how Truman responds to that feeling of safety in a really tumultuous, messed up past, as we just mentioned.
Yeah. So from here, we return to the shot from the back seat, and Truman asks for Meryl's hand to comfort him in a bit of a fake-out moment. He closes his eyes before forcing her hand onto the steering wheel, and cue the bongos and electric guitar music again.
It's at this point we see Meryl in profile, and we only see Truman's head, but his eyes are still in focus in the rearview mirror, which once again demonstrates that he is still focused on the road ahead and kind of ignores Meryl's attempts to stop his plan.
Yeah. And back to the bongos. The music is really a part of the storytelling in the scene as a whole, especially here. It sort of guides us through this stop and start pacing and the critical moments of Truman's escape. It's kind of like this Mickey Mousing almost. We're hearing music to match exactly what we're seeing on screen, in terms of the car driving, the momentum.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Next, we get another hard cut to a screeching tire sort of peeling off the pavement, and then a quick new camera angle shot from within the air vent at the front of the car facing Truman and Meryl, providing the viewer with a new perspective of them as she attempts to steer the car when Truman's eyes are shut. We quickly bounce between the air vent angle and the screeching tire and quick zooms coming from the light post camera, just kind of these quick staccato shots, increasing the tension of the scene.
Yeah, so the zoom in from the light post camera cheekily insinuates that the camera operator is attempting to close in on the action as it's happening live. So it just kind of injects this human quality that
Yeah.
there are people that are always, checking for coverage as these events unfold live.
Yeah, I love that detail so much. They just clearly don't have the proper camera coverage because they've never had a reason to put cameras along the bridge since he
Yes.
can't go over it.
Right.
So now from this air vent angle, we see Meryl as she announces, "We're over the bridge." And she's got this look of triumph. And she finally looks relieved that they didn't crash off the bridge, but she almost is a bit exhilarated by the idea that Truman conquered his fear. So Truman takes back control of the wheel at this point, too. And it's worth noting that the music has returned in full force, which is further accentuating the milestone of this moment.
Yeah, and next we're treated to a really great visual gag where their car speeds in and out of the frame as the camera whip pans with it, landing on an electric traffic sign that flashes forest fire, extreme danger. And they're just pulling out all the stops at this point.
Yeah, this is a great comedic moment that speaks to the desperation of the production crew. They're trying to stir up any kind of scenario that would lend itself to physically blocking Truman's car.
Mm.
Yeah, right. And in the pacing of the scene, it's amazing that this lands directly after the bridge triumph because the stakes just keep comedically raising higher and higher in increasingly ridiculous ways. He got through his greatest fear in life. Now there's an extreme forest fire. And I also love the music here, just going back to that, because you get this faint screech of the electric guitar right as danger is flashing across the sign, and it kind of again matches that visual we're seeing. Then we're back to the angle from the backseat of the car where Truman states that the sign is an exaggeration and we'll be fine. Hard cut to the front of the car when a huge line of fire artificially erupts on command.
Yeah, I love the sound effect here of the fire igniting. Like the fire is just completely crazy. Like, why would the fire only be on the road if it's a forest fire? Just makes no sense. Like, how would it be there?
Yeah, the timing is so great too, because it's like right after he says, "We will be fine." It's almost like this call and response moment that you sometimes see in like music or other types of like literature where, somebody says something and then immediately afterwards, the exact thing that they were not worried about comes true. And this is just a perfect example of that.
Exactly. And just like earlier in the film, the rain moment where he's reflecting on his dad's dramatic death at sea, where it starts raining on him to just highlight the sadness of his reflection. It rains just on him in like a 5-foot sphere. And in this really extravagant simulated reality of the dome that they're in, of Seahaven, there's always going to be the small details that the film crew just can't get right, to comedic effect. Like a small circle of water where it should be raining everywhere, a quote unquote forest fire, which is actually just like a line of gasoline across the road, not a forest fire, but it really works.
Mm-hmm. And at this point, Truman decides to drive through the line of fire, and the entire frame is filled with this dark gray smoke, which eventually dissipates as Truman checks to see if Meryl is okay. He asks, "Want to do it again?" And Meryl emphatically screams, "No!" And he cackles with laughter at this point, and we see the car speed away in a static shot, likely representing another hidden camera atop a lamppost or a tree, as Meryl yells, "Stop!"
I love how Truman is like he's a great person,
Yeah.
as is pointed out through the movie, and he is genuinely concerned, like are you okay after the
Mhm.
smoke has
Right.
filled their car?
Mhm.
But he's like thrilled and exhilarated by the situation, obviously.
Yeah, and at this point, Truman is kind of fully in on the gag, and he's calling everyone's bluff. So he kind of sees this experience as a game almost, and does not really appreciate any sense of true danger.
Yeah, and from here we get a small pacing shift in the scene. We cut to a front facing shot, similar to the vent angle, but with vignetted corners, probably from the dashboard. And as the music drops down, we focus on the dialogue between Truman and Meryl. They have a little moment. She begins to question what they're going to do for money when they get to New Orleans. And he seems a bit taken aback, realizing he hasn't really planned for this, and says that he has his Seahaven bank card. And then Meryl continues to guilt Truman. So we're just going to eat into our savings, and your mother is going to be worried sick. The shot ends with the distant sound of sirens, and Truman leans forward, skeptically preparing for whatever is about to block the road next. So I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but when I watched it, the reference to his mother clearly gets reaction out of Truman. Like, I wonder what he suspects is real and what isn't at this point. You know, does he think his mom is real?
Whoa.
Yeah, the look on his face may be that realization of
Oh, right.
that
Yeah.
exact point. Like, is my mother actually my mother? What is real? What isn't? Yeah, it is a bit of a nuanced emotional beat for sure.
Yeah, wow, that's a great point.
Then the next shot begins with a sign that says Sea Haven Nuclear Power Station, clean, safe, economical, more power to you. Before panning to several workers in hazmat suits in a huge scene of chaos. We get a shot through the windshield and Truman's eyes in the rearview mirror again, and he closes in on the scene with an alarming number of fire trucks and police cars, and Meryl mutters, "It must be a leak at the plant."
I love that line.
Yeah. And then a cop reaches out, hand signaling Truman to stop the car.
Yeah, I wonder if this is like the absolute last ditch emergency scenario that they've all rehearsed a bunch of times, because they seem to know it so well. You know, leak at the plant, leak at the plant. You'd have to think that putting a nuclear power plant on the outskirts of town was a really carefully considered choice by the production team.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Code Red scenario.
Yeah.
And Connor, I wanted to note the sign.
Oh,
Throughout the scene and the film, you know, the license plate, the power plant, the newspaper dog fancy. What do you think of these phrases
Yeah.
and taglines created for the town? They're kind of like intentionally lazy?
yeah. No, they're so great. They're like a classic, what you would imagine a 1950s small town America would have. And I also got a kick out of the fashion magazines that he buys for the
Yeah.
wife, and it's literally just like a photo of like like a woman's face. It's not like actually an ad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love those details.
totally. And it's great you guys pointed out the leak at the plant line, because she says that out loud, and then the police officer says it about
Yeah.
half a second after, as if
Yeah.
this line is being piped through their earpiece radio that they're all
Right.
saying at the same time. And the way Meryl says it, it's almost like out of Old Yeller or something, where she's like, "Quick, boy, there's been an accident down at the mine." It's just like a really funny line read.
Just like you mentioned, Cody, we get this over the shoulder shot as the police officer begins speaking with Truman and Merrill, and he does indeed confirm that there has been, quote, a leak at the plant, end quote. And so Truman asks if there's any way around the scene, and the cop basically tells him no. And this is another great moment where Meryl, the true actor that she is, asks the cop if there's anything she can do to help as a nurse, basically. I love that little touch of realism that she brings to the situation.
Yeah,
It's just
I love
such a
that
little-
so much too. I
It's-
really got a kick out of that watching it.
Yeah. First and foremost, she's a professional, you know?
Yes,
she's
exactly.
She's a professional actor and is always going to be in the role of Meryl the nurse. Love that touch.
Yeah, I read online that before they started filming this, they actually created a little bit of a backstory to the production. And I think they had written in that Meryl and Marlon, the actors that play them at least, had won like Emmys for their performances. And
Oh, I kind of
so,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so this kind of adds to that too. This is like her, really disappearing into her
She's on her
role.
game.
Yeah.
So he's feeling a bit dejected, but Truman thanks the officer for his help, and in a lapse of judgment, the officer responds, "You're welcome, Truman." And we get a close up on Truman's face as it sets in, and he realizes that there's no feasible way that the officer would have known his first name. And this cop messed up big time.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't know if you saw Meryl's slow, horrified look over to Truman is so great. She knows their cover's been completely blown at this point.
Yeah, and we get this return of the score with this big drum hit and these sustaining strings as they stretch out this moment of realization for maximum dramatic effect. So my question to you guys, do you think at this point Truman would have been able to backtrack everything that had happened before this and just kind of take it for face value?
Yeah, see, that's what I was kind of getting at earlier, was that obviously he doesn't yet know that he's in a TV show per se. So like, what is he realizing in this moment? I think he's simply realizing that everyone around him is lying to him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he knows the reason yet. I think he knows one, everyone is lying to him, and two, they're all trying to prevent him from leaving, but has no
That's the big
inkling
one.
that
Yeah.
and that's the big one, and has no inkling quite yet that this is a television show per se. We then see a wide shot of the scene littered with cop cars and fire trucks to a really exaggerated level, and it's so funny. As Truman bolts from his car to make a run for it, we then get a close up of Meryl's face shouting for him to come back as she shouts, "Stop him!"
And talking about Meryl as an actress, I mean, I felt like she was genuinely worried about Truman here. I mean, she might not know what the production crew will do to him if, to keep up the ruse. And it seemed like her yell really came from a real personal concern for his well-being, more so than just concern over him catching wind of the production.
I think she knows he's just off the rails at this point, and they'll do what they
Right.
can to stop him. And I love that Truman he's just so done at this point.
Yeah.
He's over the whole situation. He knows everyone's lying to the point where he's willing to just take off on foot. Like, where is he going? What's the plan here? Like, he's just gonna keep
He's
running or
making
walking
a break for it.
out
He
of-
doesn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, Truman barrels past a few hazmat suited workers as they chase after him helplessly with these vaguely threatening Geiger counter guns, which in real life are unable to deal any damage whatsoever. So it's just kind of amusing to see them kind of like point them at him. But you kind of realize later on, which we'll talk about, that they actually function as cameras too, but they do look
Right.
vaguely threatening.
There's something really funny and satisfying about seeing Truman just knocking over some of these hazmat suit guys who are all just actors in these suits, like running around with equipment they don't know about. He's just
Right.
knocking guys over like a running back.
Yeah.
So next, the audience is given a static wide shot as Truman enters the forest with an entire team of emergency personnel behind him who have conveniently diverted their attention from the leak at the plant, which is hilarious, and they're now chasing after him. That's what they're so focused on.
And the perspective then shifts into a POV shot from within one of the Geiger counter machines, as you mentioned, Mark, as Truman is being surrounded by more and more hazmat suits. Truman attempts to ward them off with a stick that he picks up, and we switch to another point of view shot from Truman's perspective as the hazmats close in around him with a net. I just love the use of this net prop.
Right.
And before Truman can escape, another hazmat appears seemingly out of nowhere from the bushes behind him and tackles him to the ground.
Right. I think it's such a smart touch because they wouldn't have access to many cameras, like Connor mentioned about the bridge. I'd say even less so in the forest, right? And so they kind of rely on ground coverage, so to speak. So any way that they can. And so they use the Geiger counters here for that.
Yeah, definitely.
And the final shot of this scene appears to be from a tree where we get a wider perspective of the scene. Truman, horrified, begins shouting as the hazmats begin piling on top of him, with one holding what looks like a syringe, and that's the scene. So, what do you guys think they do to him? Do they sedate him? Like, what are what are these guys doing?
Right. Yeah, I think it has to be some sort of sedation to get him to
Mm.
calm down and kind of
Ugh.
comply and then eventually just take him back to Sea Haven.
Yeah. Which, like, what's the recovery plan from here? What are the characters in Truman's life going to make up as an excuse why all of the hazmat suit individuals would tackle him, sedate him, and just bring him home? Like, what was the plan after that? Like, I think that things have just changed irreparably beyond this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a super fun scene, so much momentum and action happening, and is kind of the crux of Truman's existential break. And I know we have a couple last discussion points about the scene itself and maybe the film as a whole. What struck you guys about this scene in particular? And did you have any other scenes that were in contention in your mind?
Yeah, so I think this scene was for me an obvious choice just because it designates the point of no return. So Truman unmasks too many elements behind the production and his artificial world that there's no conceivable way that they can recover from this.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a great reveal of the absurd lengths that the production team will go to keep Truman trapped in their world. And we're seeing Truman take some real agency here and overcome his fears to escape the illusion. So it's definitely a turning point of the film and one of those pivotal scenes.
One point I really do want to mention is the ending is like one of the biggest middle fingers I've ever seen to an audience ever, where we see the two security guards kind of be treated to the static from the TV as the transmission ends. And they both look at each other kind of puzzled and they're like, what else is on? And then like it cuts to black. I think
Such a great ending,
it's
though.
so scathing to the audience. That really stuck with me too. It's just like this is you guys. And I know I read at one point they wanted to install cameras in movie theaters
Oh, cool.
around the world so that way when they were showing the different audience reactions to the ending, it would actually cut to a shot of the live audience.
No way.
Yeah,
Wow,
but they
that's ambitious.
obviously realized that there's like no way to feasibly do
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, I love that ending too, Mark. And it's the perfect example, the microcosm of why the film holds up today still, because the ending is super satirical and just
Yeah.
comments on how like you can be so invested in these quote unquote characters, and yet when the broadcast is done, when the show's done, when you've wrapped out the season or the series, ultimately it's just a TV show and you go
Hmm.
on to live your own life or quote see what else is on
Hmm.
unquote. And I love it for that realism and cynicism at the end there. You're
Yes,
totally right.
cynicism. Yeah, our attention spans are so short that people don't really care anymore.
Yeah, Truman is starting his brand new life as an adult in control of his destiny. And the people who are watching, they are actually the ones like being controlled by this show, and they're just going to move on to the next piece of content.
Hmm.
Right.
I just want to reiterate, and I'm sure you guys would agree, how impressive and prescient this movie was and is. It still holds up as a deeply heady and really troubling concept, actually,
Yeah.
but ultimately is balanced with this emotional, inspirational choice for Truman to start life anew. And it's a great reminder for all of us to take our own lives into our hands and control our own destiny. And ultimately, that light tone is a great balance to the disturbing questions that you can ask about the concept of the film.
Hmm.
So great to watch this again, celebrate its 25th anniversary, which is wild to think about.
It is.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah.
I loved rewatching this, and yeah, very well said.
Thank you. And as always, thanks guys for your thoughts on the film, and thank you to our listeners and fellow movie enthusiasts for reliving this scene with us. Do you have a favorite scene from The Truman Show? You can email us at contact@scenecraftpodcast.com with any of your thoughts or comments, or follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok at Scenecraft Podcast for the latest updates on the show. You can also support us by leaving us a review or a star rating on your platform of choice. A very special thanks, as always, to Jordan Summerlad for our theme music. Stay tuned for our next episode releasing on June 21st, where we'll be discussing Asteroid City, directed by Wes Anderson. This has been Scenecraft, where we break down the craft behind our favorite scenes. See you all next time.